Welcome back to Legacy Labs. Today I want to talk about repetition because repetition is one of the clearest ways a system starts telling on itself. Something happens once and maybe it's random. Maybe it's bad luck. Maybe it's one person, one deadline, one platform, one relationship, one AI tool, or one weird moment. But when the same kind of outcome keeps coming back through different situations, now the question has to change. At first, the question is, what happened? But after repetition, the better question is, what keeps making this outcome possible? And that's the shift. Because when people change, the circumstances change, the language changes, and the result still finds its way back, the pattern is no longer something you can ignore. And that's when repetition starts becoming evidence. Not automatic proof, but evidence. So the surface problem. The surface problem is simple. Something keeps happening again. A different employee, a different relationship, a different platform, a different conflict, a different tool. But somehow the same outcome returns. And because the surface looks different each time, people treat every incident like it's brand new. They say, this employee didn't work out, or this relationship was different, or this platform changed, or this AI tool just isn't good enough. And maybe some of that is true, but when everything around the pattern changes and the same result still comes back, that's when we have to look deeper. Because the issue may not be the person in the moment. It may be the structure around the moment. So what people usually try is replacement. Replace the employee, replace the manager, find a new partner, hire another consultant, switch platforms, buy another AI tool, rebrand, start over. And honestly, replacement can feel like change. There's a new person in the seat, a new tool, a new strategy, a new platform, a new relationship, a new plan. So for a while, it feels like the problem has been solved, but then the same pattern starts returning. The hesitation comes back, the imbalance comes back, the delays come back, the drift comes back, the same role comes back. And that's when you realize a new participant entered the old architecture. The cache changed, the script survived. And that's the part that people miss, because replacing the visible participant does not automatically repair the system that shaped the participant. So the structural break. The structural break is what remains unchanged while the incidents keep changing. One event can be explained a lot of ways. One missed deadline could be poor planning. One argument could be a bad day. One weak post could be an isolated miss. One generic AI draft could be a prompt problem. But repetition changes the burden of explanation. When the surface conditions change and the same outcome survives, something underneath must be staying stable. A role, a rule, an incentive, a pressure, an avoidance pattern, an inherited expectation, a memory the system keeps carrying forward. That's where the real diagnostic begins. Not with the question, why did this happen again? But with the question, what stayed the same while everything else seemed to change? Because if the same result keeps appearing across different circumstances, the structure is probably doing more work than people want to admit. Here's a simple example. 3 different employees occupy the same role over 5 years. Different people, different personalities, different backgrounds, different levels of experience, but all 3 eventually produce the same outcome. So moment A, each employee begins with energy and initiative. They ask questions, they bring ideas, they want to improve the work, they seem capable. So at the beginning, leadership feels good about the hire. It looks like the role finally has the right person. Moment B. Then over time, each employee becomes more hesitant. They stop making routine decisions on their own. They start escalating things that should not need escalation. They wait for approval. They avoid risks. From the outside, leadership starts seeing this as a personal weakness. They say the employee lacks initiative. Moment T. Eventually, each employee leaves, and leadership reaches the same conclusion every time. They just weren't the right fit. But the structural read asks a better question. What did all 3 employees encounter? Maybe the role carries responsibility without authority. Maybe initiative is praised in theory, but punished when decisions create discomfort. Maybe people are told to lead, but the system only rewards permission seeking. So the hesitation may not be a personality defect. It may be adaptation to the structure. The people changed, the role didn't. So narrative architecture read. From a narrative architecture perspective, repetition gives us a way to read what the system is carrying. Because the repeated event does not automatically prove one cause, but it does make the surviving structure too important to ignore. So pulse. Pulse is the signal. Different people, different moments, same result. That reoccurring outcome becomes the thing we have to pay attention to. The latest event may look isolated, but repetition suggests it may belong to something larger than the incident itself. So the pulse here is not just this happened again. The pulse is this keeps finding its way back. Pressure. Pressure tells us when the pattern activates. A lot of patterns do not show up all the time. They show up under specific conditions. Higher risk, greater intimacy, a deadline, a demand for commitment, a meaningful decision. That's why pressure matters, because the structure may look fine until it gets tested. Then suddenly the old patterns return. Pressure reveals when the structure becomes active. Rhythm asks, when does the pattern activate? A project always slows at the approval stage. A relationship destabilizes whenever commitment becomes concrete. A team escalates decisions whenever risk increases. That timing is not random. The pattern has rhythm, and once you can see the rhythm, you can stop being surprised every time the same outcome returns. You can start asking what press point keeps activating it. Inheritance. Inheritance asks what was already waiting before a current person arrived. A manager inherits an approval culture. An employee inherits unresolved conflict. A child inherits a family role. A creator inherits habits built for an earlier version of the work. That means the current person may be new, but the architecture is not. They may not have invented the pattern, they may have entered it. And once they entered it, the structure starts shaping what becomes possible. So, Motif. Motif asks what keeps coming back even when the surface story changes. The same conflict, the same silence, the same role, the same promise, the same expectation, the same change in tone. Maybe the same excuse keeps appearing. Maybe the same person always becomes the fixer. Maybe the same topic always creates avoidance. Maybe the same kind of conflict keeps getting renamed instead of resolved. Motif helps you see the repeated shape inside different events. Then memory. Memory asks what the system keeps carrying forward. Organizations remember old failures through policy. Family remembers danger through silence. Brands remember successful attention through imitation. Relationships remember injuries through expectation. The original event may be gone, but the structure remains. That's why repetition can feel so frustrating. Everyone says that they're starting fresh, but the system is still responding to something old. The diagnosis is this: repetition becomes evidence when changing circumstances continue producing a recognizable structural pattern. That doesn't mean one repeated event proves everything. It means the surviving structure has to be investigated. Because when the people change, the tools change, the language changes, and the outcome keeps returning, the system is showing you what it knows how to reproduce. So the better question: instead of only asking, why did this happen? Ask a better question. Because why did this happen again can still keep you trapped inside the latest incident. It can make the newest employee, the newest partner, the newest tool, or the newest conflict carry the whole diagnosis. But the point is not only to explain the latest event, the point is to compare the events. Ask, what is repeating? What changed between incidents? What changed? What stayed the same? When does the pattern activate? What pressure was present? Which roles keep returning? What solution has already been tried? What does the system seem to remember? What did the current participants inherit? And maybe the most important question: does this explanation predict where the pattern will appear next? Because a useful diagnosis should not only explain the past, it should help you read the next pressure point. So the strategy shift. The strategy shift is simple. Stop treating reoccurring outcomes as isolated incidents. Start comparing them structurally. Preserve enough memory to compare events. Separate what changed from what remained. Track the pressure that activates the pattern. Look for reoccurring rules, incentives, and expectations. And test the pattern against contradictory examples. That part matters because repetition should create investigation, not certainty. You do not want pattern recognition to become confirmation bias. The goal is not to prove that something is a pattern. The goal is to stop losing evidence every time the surface changes. One event may tell you what happened. Repetition can reveal the structure that keeps making it possible. And that's the core idea. The event may not be the problem. The event may be where the system becomes visible because meaning breaks when structure fails. So I'm going to link this article into the in the description. You guys can take a deeper look. If you want a deeper dive on your workflow, your AI workflow, if you want a diagnosis on your organization, your relationship, anything like that, I'm going to put all the information in the descriptions. So I actually wrote a full breakdown on this, so why repetition becomes evidence. You guys can take a look. If you want to do a diagnostic on your AI workflows, your organization, your relationship, DNA patterns, anything like that, all the links in the video description, they're also on the Legacy Labs page description. So it'll all be in there. If you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.